Hello and welcome to my review of The Man in the High Castle by Philip K. Dick. I picked up this book largely because of the TV series, and I assume that a few other people will have come at it from that perspective as well. But I didn't particularly enjoy the TV series. I think I watched a handful of episodes before I decided that it wasn't for me, but the overall concept seemed interesting enough that I wanted to find out a little bit more about it. There are other novels, notably SSGB by Len Dayton, that deal with a similar subject, but I had never read a Philip K. Dick novel before, so reading this seemed like a good way to satisfy my curiosity about him as well. The plot is difficult to summarise. I don't want to say complicated, as that might imply rather negatively that it would be hard to follow or convoluted, but it's more busy. There's a lot going on, and that's despite the fact that the novel comes in just a shade over 250 pages. The Man in the High Castle is set during the 1960s, but in an alternative present, 15 years or so after the Nazis won the war. All of the action takes place in the former United States, which has been divided between the two superpowers, with a neutral buffer zone between the two. A man comes from Sweden to meet a high-ranking Japanese official. It is revealed that there are two factions in the Nazi German government, one that advocates a surprise attack on the Japanese, and the other that opposes it, and the man is attempting to warn the Japanese of the problem. There's a number of other story arcs going on as well. Frank Fink is fired from his job and he sets up a business making custom jewellery. Robert Childen, a dealer in American antiques and Japanophile, attempts to sell his stock to his rich Japanese customers. And then there's the story of Juliana, who is separated from Frank. She begins a relationship with an Italian truck driver, and despite some misgivings, the two go on a road trip. So you do get, along with some intrigue, a good insight into the varying lives of the people that make up this society and the world that Dick creates. The two things that tie these threads together, as much as they tie together anyway, are the two books within the book. The I Ching, the oracle that just about everybody consults before making any decisions, and The Grasshopper Lies Heavy, a novel that is banned by the Germans, but available freely in the non-German parts of the States. This tells of an alternative history where the Allies won the war. The Grasshopper, like the High Castle itself, breaks off from its narrative at times to just recount the history of its own world, so that we as an audience know that the reality depicted in The Grasshopper is not the same as our one. Dick's characters nearly all rely on the I Ching to make the decisions for them, even seemingly minor ones. There is certainly the suggestion that fate makes us rather than we make our own fate. However, there are two significant decisions made by characters without consulting the I Ching, and those are the decisions that have the most consequences. Childen, when told American-made jewellery is basically fit for nothing but pointless trinkets, goes against the Japanese line and says that he is proud of the work. He gives such a piece of jewellery to Tagomi, despite the latter not being especially keen. The jewellery, and other issues, I'm trying to keep spoilers to a minimum here, cause Tagomi to experience something otherworldly, and then, when he is presented by the Germans with an order to send someone to their death, Tagomi makes a stand and saves that person's life. I think what the author is trying to say here is that these free decisions are the hardest ones and have the most consequences. One thing I found missing from the novel that is in the TV series was the sense of threat, particularly that provided by the character of John Smith. That character is not in the book at all. Additionally, the character of Juliana, who was front and centre of the TV show, is here just part of an ensemble. Juliana's character arc was the one that I found most frustrating. We are presented with numerous inner monologues from her, in which she expresses her doubts about the relationship that she has found herself in with Joe. Joe is clearly strange, and almost certainly dangerous. She acknowledges all of that, but she still gets dragged into a situation by him, and Joe's reasons for involving her in that seem unsatisfactory as well. He believes that her looks alone will convince the writer of The Grasshopper Lies Heavy to give them an audience. This is despite the fact that the author apparently lives in a machine gun turreted fortress. I was definitely expecting more from someone like Philip K. Dick, who is such a huge part of the sci-fi canon. This was my first exposure to his work, and while it was very interesting for the most part, it wasn't ever particularly exciting. The pace is slow, and the jumping between the various stories sometimes makes it harder to build tension or excitement. For example, Dick moves from a gunfight to a scene about jewellery making and back again. Obviously, the contrast there is quite striking, but I felt that that wasn't worth the loss of the excitement itself. The ending is kind of a damp squib as well. The many story threads don't really tie together, and while that is completely understandable, as there was always intended to be a sequel, that never actually materialised. The comparison between the Cold War between the German and the Japanese superpowers of the novel and the one between the British and American powers in The Grasshopper Lies Heavy would also be an appropriate comparison to the NATO and USSR tensions of the Cold War. With his treatment of the I Ching and the role of fate and truth, Philip K. Dick seems to be suggesting that it is our destiny to be in this perpetual struggle between superpowers, and without a monumental effort, nothing can be done about it. Like Tagomi and children, though, perhaps we can begin to make a difference. In conclusion, I found The Man in the High Castle to be a very solid piece of science fiction, never less than interesting, but never quite reaching the heights I expected of such a renowned writer and the fascinating concept. One of the strongest things for me was how quickly and easily the characters seem to have adapted to life under Japanese rule. It says something, I think, about us as a species and our easy acceptance of authority figures. That, and its themes of acceptance of fate and this unavoidable struggle, make a statement that is still relevant 50 years after it was published. That alone, I think, makes it something of a classic. If you like your science fiction more in the vein of Stranger in a Strange Land than Star Wars, then I would definitely recommend this novel to you. I'd also recommend it as something of a curiosity to fans of the TV show, though they are quite different. Thank you for listening to my review of The Man in the High Castle by Philip K. Dick. Feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comments section. And if you enjoyed this review, why not click like and then check out some of the other videos on my channel.